Part 11. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoye 11U. Chapter 103. As soon as Lu Shenke finished scolding Lu Yizhu, Mrs. Wu slammed the table. We must separate our families. We cannot let them drag down our whole family. Lu Shenke frowned. What nonsense are you talking about? Why did we reach the point of dividing the family? Master Tongpan just invited the Bocheng family to question him. Didn't he also release them after questioning? She didn't know Qing. What can happen? It will be too late when something happens. Who will marry me then? Lu Yizhu interjected. Yes, Yizhu is right. That's Lord Tongpan. A senior official in the government is bigger than the magistrate of Pingchuan County. So what? How is it? Lu Shenke, aren't you usually very smart? Now you can't turn your head around. He is older than the magistrate of Pingchuan. In half a month, Bozu will take the government examination. After passing the government examination, he will be a Tongsheng. If the magistrate is worried about being blamed, it will be useless no matter how talented he is. No, that's not the case. Our family has not committed any crime. Can you explain this clearly? Do you know what the crime is? Punishing the 9 clans. If the Su family is on good terms with them, even if our family is not arrested, we will be stared at. The magistrate has not vented his anger. You, my son, still wants to come forward? No, it can't be. Su Qingnao didn't know what happened in the backyard, so she hugged the baby and fed her, then waited for Su Qingliu in the house. More than an hour later, Su Qingliu and Xiao Qingyang came back together. Qingyang, why did you finish school so early today? Su Qingnao was a little surprised when she saw Qingyang. Su Qingliu looked frightened and leaned close to Su Qingyu and whispered, he and Kia were taken from the school by the soldiers to be questioned by Lord Tongpan. Ah! Qingyang. Seeing Su Qingyu's worried look, Xiao Qingyang hurriedly came over and grabbed her hand. It's okay, sister. I didn't see Master Tongpan. His master asked us some questions separately. They asked us what we did when we went to the Yangui Martial Arts Hall, what we saw, and whether we found anything. They all responded truthfully, and then they let us back. Then did they ask you for anything? Sister, are you talking about the jade toad that Master Ma gave us? No, the adults didn't ask, so we didn't say anything. Sister, how about I give it to you for safekeeping? No, just put it away yourself. After speaking, he turned around and asked about Su Qingliu's arrival at Xie's house. Thank you, Mr. Xie, for saying that he knows. He knows what to do, so you can rest assured. No one knows. If you want to ask anything, just tell the truth. Su Qingyu nodded after hearing this. In the evening, 2 policemen delivered some jewelry. He also told Su Qingyu not to go out if she had nothing to do. The adults might even call her over for questioning, and told her to report truthfully if there was anything she forgot to mention, or if she discovered anything, or if Master Ma contacted her. Su Qing agreed. He stuffed 2 more messengers with a few taels of silver and sent them away. Within a few days, word spread around town. Because there are often soldiers walking around on the street, there are many fewer people on the street. Residents living around the Yangui Martial Arts Hall were called over one by one for questioning. When Su Qingliu came to Luzai, she would also tell Su Qinjiao that she often saw soldiers around the shop and near the homes of Master Ma's apprentices. There are even places near Lu's house. But Su Qingyu felt that Master Ma would never come back to this place again since Master Ma was gone. Touching the scene and feeling sad. Moreover, for such a big case, it would be too late to hide, so he would not take the initiative to appear in the trap set by the county government. From that day on, everyone in Fengting town who Master Ma and his disciples had met was interrogated, including all the places they had visited. It made people in the town panic. Everyone stayed behind closed doors. Su Qingyu's shop was visibly deserted. But no one came to the store, and the overall business was not affected much. After all, everyone still needs to eat and drink. If you don't go out to buy it, you'll have to pay extra to have it delivered to your door. As a result, people in the store are running around every day. Even Grandma Jo and her grandson pushed a small cart to deliver goods from house to house. Just when Su Qingyu thought that things would just go away like this, a few days later, someone from the Sun family who was engaged to be married in Lubozu County came. I spent a long time talking to Lu Shenke and Wu in the room. After sending the person away, Lu Shenke locked himself in the house and refused to leave. He pretended not to hear Wu knocking on the door. Wu had no choice but to ask someone to call Lu Bozu back. Lu Bozu rushed back from Pingchuan County after a long journey. He asked Lu Shenke, "Dad, am I not as important as my eldest brother? I will take the imperial examination soon." The teachers in the Sun family school all said that as long as I perform normally, I will definitely win the Tongsheng examination. Yes. When I pass the college exam in June, I will have the reputation of being a scholar. Dad, haven't you always wanted to change your career? You have the heart to ruin my future. Wu also helped. That's right, Bozu is also your biological son, why can't you think about him? My relatives have already said that Ma Mingwen robbed the county magistrate's private treasury and took away all his property. Now, do you think he can let Bozu stand out? If you don't separate the family and express your attitude to the magistrate, do you think your son can stand out? Dad, not only is my future gone, but the Sun family may also terminate the engagement. The county magistrate has been running Pingchuan County for one term. He was just re-elected this year and has 4 years left. As long as he is here, I can't think of getting ahead. As long as we separate from the big house and let my father-in-law take action in front of the magistrate, I still have a bright future. Lu Shenke was silent. He felt that what they said was reasonable, but privately, he still felt that this matter had nothing to do with Su Qingyu. She didn't know what Ma Mingwen did. Lord Tongsan didn't look for her again, so the matter must have passed. And she also gave birth to her eldest grandchild. If Bo Chen knew that he separated the two of them, he would definitely blame him. When Bo Chen left, he promised him that he would take good care of her. If anything happens to Bo Chen in the future, how will they live as orphans and widowers? Dad, you have to decide what to do. If you don't separate the family, I will go to the Sun family as a son-in-law. What nonsense are you talking about? Can your father be willing to let you be someone's son-in-law? Mrs. Wu grabbed him anxiously and angrily, for fear that he would really make this decision. Lu Shenke looked up at Lu Bozu in shock and fear. You really think so? Lu Bozu insisted, yes. If Dad you don't want to separate the family and gamble with my future, I will go to the Sun family. The Sun family will definitely cultivate me well. Dad, don't you always hope that I can? Do you want to get a meritorious service? As long as I have a meritorious service, my family will be exempted from military service. Then my grandparents in the countryside will be grateful to me. Lu Shenke was stunned after hearing this. It took a long time before he uttered, "You, let Dad think about it." Lu Bozu saw that he had talked a lot, but his father kept insisting, and said anxiously, "Dad, you have to hurry up, the government examination will start in a few days, and I have to go to the Sun family to ask for advice." Wu glanced at Lu Shenke, who had his head buried in his hands, and pushed Lu Bozu, "You go to rest and freshen up first. Don't you know your father? He must be looking at you." After Lu Bozu left, Mrs. Wu said to Lu Shenke, "How long do you have to think about it? It's not like we don't care about her after the family separation, it's just that her household registration is not in the same place. She is usually in the town, I can still stop her. Are you going to see your eldest grandson? If you don't want to separate, you can stay alone with your eldest grandson in Fengting Town, and I will take Bozu and the others to Pingchuan County. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Ba Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 104. Su Qinjiao couldn't help but smile as she watched Lu Shenke holding her son who was rarely sleeping, coaxing him, calling him little baby, little baby, little baby, and touching his forehead from time to time with a doting look on his face. Read. Since Lu Viang was born, Lu Shenke has come to see him every morning and every night. Hold on and hold on. It can be seen that he really likes this grandson. However, the hug lasted too long today. Usually, as soon as Aunt Jo brought her dinner, Lu Shenke left and went to the main room to eat. Today, she kept holding the child. She had finished dinner. Zhou Hongxiu put away the dishes and chopsticks for a while, but he still held the child and did not let go. Su Qingyu thought for a while and said, "Dad, do you have something to tell me?" Ah. Is there something to say or nothing to say? When Lu Shenke saw Su Qingyu looking at him, his men paused, stopped patting and coaxing the child, glanced at Xiaobao, and then handed the child to Hongxiu. As soon as Su Qingnao saw it, she asked Xiao Qingxing and Hongxiu to walk around the courtyard with their children in their arms. "Dad, if you have anything to do, just ask me." After hearing this, Lu Shenke glanced at Su Qingyu, then avoided her eyes. Looking at the void in front of him, Dad has something to say, but he has been thinking about how to say it for the past 2 days. Something is really going on. It's okay, Dad, just tell me. Lu Shenke thought about extending his head and slashing his head, and then shrinking his head and slashing his head. The palms and backs of his hands were full of flesh. Besides, Mrs. Wu was right. After the family was separated, everyone still lived in the town, but they no longer lived in the same place. It was not like he couldn't visit his eldest grandson. Isn't his eldest grandson's surname still Lu? After thinking about it, I told him the words that had worried him for 2 days and were hard to say. Su Qingyu listened quietly, somewhat surprised. To be honest, she didn't want to separate. Even though neither Mrs. Wu nor the children she gave birth to respected her, she never thought of splitting up and living a separate life. These days, the world's ethics are very strict. As a woman, she has a child and her husband is still alive and dead, so she still needs to have an identity and a place of refuge. Having an identity and a place to go makes things easier. Not that many people dare to bully him. But after listening to what Lu Shenke said now, she could understand. Officials in agriculture, industry, and commerce, poor people and common people want to jump up the ranks. Only by passing the imperial examination and becoming an official can they have the opportunity to change their family. Studying and becoming an official may be a lifelong obsession for many ordinary people. She understands that Lu Shenke hopes to get rid of his identity and change his family. However, I still felt a little uncomfortable. This means that Lu Shenke gave up another son for his son's future. I have no expectations for that son. Su Qingyu felt depressed. Somewhat sad. For the child, for him. Seeing Su Qingyu lowering her head, Lu Shenke felt a little uncomfortable. He opened his lips and said, "Which branch of the family is for the higher UPS to see? Dad and you still live in the same town. Dad will still help you take care of Xiaobao and help you raise him up. Dad, I won't treat you badly." Lu Shenke was a little speechless. Su Qinjiao calmed down, smiled, and said to him, "Well, I believe Dad. Since dividing the family will be beneficial to the eldest brother's exams, let's split it. My daughter-in-law has no objection. Then Dad will go to the county to help split the family. Come on, I'll ask my dad to help me find a house in the past 2 days, and I'll move out when I find one." Lu Shenke looked ashamed. No need to worry about the father-in-law. Dad will help you with the house. If we separate, the family will also give you some things. After saying that, seeing that Sukingyu didn't say anything, he told us about the family's land wealth. Our family has 108 acres of land. This is what Dad thinks. He will give you 30 acres, which is as much as your 2 brothers. 10 My mother gave Yuju a dowry, and my father kept the remaining 8 acres as a retirement land. In the past 2 days, my father went to find a house for you to buy. The 2 families live close to each other, and it is easier to take care of the money. Forget it, I won't lose you and Xiaobao by then. Sukingyu nodded. Lu Shenke said some more. Seeing that Sukingyu was listening more and talking less, he couldn't continue. Then Dad is going back first. I will talk to you after Dad has finished the matter. Good. After Lu Shenke left, Sukingyu was stunned for a long time. When Lu Shenke returned to his yard, he didn't even eat well. He was afraid that Mrs. Wu would ask all kinds of questions, which would make Lu Shenke very irritable. You can't let me finish my meal alive. You eat, you eat. Finally, Lu Shenke finished eating. After hearing what Lu Shenke said, Wu became furious. Why give her so many acres of land? Bocheng's maternal grandfather's family still has 15 acres left. If she adds it up, the 2 of them will have 40 or 50 acres, which is more than Boziu and Bozone. What do you want Boziu to do? Studying. Also, what can you do with only 8 acres of land for the 2 of us? Lu Shenke thought she was annoying. Bocheng is the eldest son, so he should get half of the house. Let's share half of it. What can we eat and drink? Bozone Yuju hasn't even said marriage yet. Most of the money in the family has been used for Boziu's engagement, and he will take the exams to get married in the future, so why don't you need money? You are pretending to be generous. You still want it? How much money do you want to share with her when you come back? Am I allowed to watch her orphaned and widowed mother live outside with nothing? Besides, I can still work, and it's not like I won't make any money later. What do you earn? How much can you earn? After all these years, it's still just the 100 acres of land and this yard. Then what else do you want? Land, shops, a house, food, and drink, isn't that enough? Wu choked. This is indeed much better than before when she followed the one in front. Then when did she say she would move? I'll wait until I buy them a house before moving. Where do I want them to move to now? She's not even out of confinement yet. You want to buy them a house, Wu exploded again. If you don't buy a house, why don't you let them live on the street? Can't you rent a yard to live in? How much money does it cost to buy a house? Money is needed for everything in the house. Then there's no need to separate the family. And there's no need to spend money on buying a house. Wu was speechless upon hearing this. Finally, there was an opportunity to separate the family, but most of Lu Bachan would never come back. I didn't hear that any of the people in the town who had been drafted away came back. Could it be that she was helping Lu Bo to raise the child? If she and Lu Shenke die in the future, will her 2 sons still have to help raise their nephew? That won't work. Then I'll look for a house tomorrow, Wu thought for a while and said. Lu Shenke waved his hand. What kind of house can you find? Can you be familiar with me in this town? Wu wanted to say something, but she was afraid of offending Lu Shenke, or that he would become stubborn and not separate the family. What about his son? The government examination is coming soon, and I have to ask my in-laws to say hello in front of the magistrate. So I said no more. The next day, Lu Shenke went to Pingchuan County with Lu Bozu, divided up the household registration, and transferred 30 acres of land to Sukingyu's name, and then went to the Sun family to meet his future in-laws with a gift. I rushed back the same day and asked someone to look at the house. In the evening, I went to see Su's father, asked him to drink, and told him the matter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Xiaoye 11U. Chapter 105. Only then did Su's father know that the Lu family was about to be separated because of Master Ma's incident. Read. After drinking and listening to Lu Shenkei's explanation, Su's father became anxious and followed Lu Shenkei back to Lu's house. I went to Su Qingyu and asked her what she thought. After hearing this, I went back feeling worried and swollen. Didn't sleep all night. When Mrs. Wu learned that Lu Shenkei wanted to spend 120 taels to buy a yard for Su Qingyu and his wife, she immediately disagreed. This is too much. Isn't there something cheaper? Lu Shenkei frowned. This is already very small. It's just the first time I get in. If it were bigger, it would cost more than this. But this is too much. 1 tael can be rented for a couple, and 10 taels can be rented for a year, which is more than 100 taels. Mrs. Wu really felt a little pain in her body. She didn't know what to do with the money. She used it for Su Qing's prostitution. No matter what Wu said, Lu Shenkei would not agree. I couldn't help but feel a little angry. Lu Shenkei felt that he had promised Lu Bachan to take good care of their mother and son, but he had not done so now. To separate the mother and son, I really couldn't get over that hurdle. Lu Shenkei took the assigned household registration to Su Qingyu and gave her the land deed for the assigned household. Dad, who rents the land, can collect it for you and give it to you later. As for the houses, I looked at a few houses and one of them is very close to your shop. It's convenient for you to live there. Su Qingyu took over the household registration booklet and land deed. After listening to Lu Shenkei's words, she said, Dad, I'm afraid it won't be convenient for me to live with Xiaobao alone. I may need to buy a bigger one so that my sister and brother can come together. It's better to live there. It's not convenient for me to go out now. I'll give Dad some more money. Dad, please help me get married. After saying that, he turned around and went to get the money. Lu Shenkei stopped her. Dad didn't think carefully. It's really not convenient for you and your mother to live there. Don't take the money. Dad will help you pay it. When the time comes, I won't give you the money for the separation. If Bozu had been engaged to a small family, the family would have had some extra money, but now, your 2 younger brothers have to continue studying. Lu Shenkei said it a little difficult. Su Qingyu interrupted him, Dad, I understand. Originally, I didn't plan to split the family money anymore. I have the land left by my grandfather Bo Chang, and my father allocated it to me. I still have a shop, which is enough. It's not easy for me to support Xiaobao. Hey. Lu Shenkei choked up. I wonder if any woman from the Sun family is as sensible as the Bo Chang family. 2 days later, Lu Shenkei bought a house with 7 or 8 rooms and a large yard. It was not far from Su Qingyu's shop. Su's father and others all went to see it and were very satisfied. Su's father and others helped clean up for a few days, and gradually added all the things that needed to be added to the house. He also helped move most of Lu Bachan and Su Qingyu's things there. On the day when Su Qingyu was pregnant, Su's mother sent red eggs from the countryside to some close friends, neighbors around the Lu family, and some customers in the shop. Lu Shenkei also invited Su's father, Su's mother, and others from the shop to have a meal at Lu's house, and held a lively full moon ceremony for Lu Viang. A month has passed for little Viang. He has grown a lot and is well fed. He is so fat and white that everyone is vying to hold him. The child still sleeps a lot and is not ready for birth yet. He lets anyone hold him and does not cry. Adults and children rarely hold him. After the full moon banquet, Su Qingyu moved to her new home the next day. Lu Shenkei held an umbrella and held Xiaobao himself all the way without letting anyone change his hands. I carried him all the way to his new house. Sukingyu came here for the first time and looked at the packed new home with mixed feelings in her heart. I wanted to wait for the child's father to come back in Lu's house, but I didn't expect that just a short time later, he hugged the child and left the house. When he was a child, he had to show his presence in front of Lu Shenke by acting wildly. No matter how angry he was willing to stay in that home. However, the next time he comes back, he will be sad if his home is gone. There was no place for his mother anymore. Sukingyu walked back and forth in the courtyard, looked at it carefully, and was satisfied with how her father and sister had cleaned up. She settled down in the new house. I also invited Aunt Jo over that day, started cooking, and warmed the house. Wu and Lu Yuzhu also invited over. The mother and daughter were a little agitated when they faced the yard they entered, but they did not dare to jump up because of Lu Shenke's pressure. Before leaving after dinner, Lu Shenke hugged Xiaobao and was reluctant to let go. I held Xiaobao's little fleshy hand and touched it again, and finally reluctantly left. After Sukingyu put the child to sleep, she wandered around her new home. Seeing that the yard was quite big, she told Su's mother that she wanted to plant some vegetables in a secluded area. Mother Su immediately took care of everything and turned around to find tools. "Sister, I want to sleep with you." Xiao Qingxin grabbed Sukingyu's hand and acted like a baby. Sukingyu smiled and touched her head. "There are so many rooms. Isn't it good for you to have only one room? Yang Yang has to wake up many times at night, and you won't be able to sleep well. Then I'll sleep next to my sister. If my sister calls me, I'll hear her. Okay, anyway, there are many rooms, so she can choose whatever she wants." There are many rooms in the new home, so Sukingneo said to Sukingliu, "Sister, you and Yaya can move in with me. There are more people, and it will be safer for us to live there. Dad will also live here." Su's father and Sukingliu nodded in agreement. In fact, Su's father owns an ox cart and only lives in the town half of the month. He goes back to live in Kyoto village every now and then and drives back from the village early the next morning. "Dad, you ask brother Dahu to withdraw his yard, and live in the shop with Daejiang. The two of you will guard the shop, and there will be someone to help you if anything happens. You will also save a share of the rent." "Okay, I'll tell Dad when he gets back later." The kitchen in the new home is very big, but since Sukingneo was born in confinement, she almost stayed in the shop with her baby in her arms and ate all 3 meals in the shop. Grandma Jo often cooked everyone's meals while doing homework, so the kitchen in her new home was only used on the day she moved into the house and was not used much. Because the child didn't make any noise, Suqing left the shop empty for a month and then started busy with the business in the shop. In the past month, due to the arrival of people from the government office, the town has closed its doors and people do not go out for leisure, which has had some impact on business. But the business of dried vegetables and fruits is still going on as usual. Su Shayan must have opened up the trade route, and now he wants more goods. When Sukingyu got the payment, he exchanged it for gold and hid it. She has an obsession that gold will retain its value and jade will prosper in troubled times. She didn't know whether the world was in chaos or not, and she was far away from the court. But it's definitely not a prosperous age. The army is being drafted every now and then. Even if you say it's a prosperous time, even a child wouldn't believe it. It's just that Fengting town is still peaceful. The people in the government office later invited Sukingyu to come over and ask him a few questions. It's just that I can't figure out what's going on. However, the government soldiers have not yet withdrawn from Fengting town, and there are still people in the Yanggui Martial Arts Hall watching from the dark. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 106. As for whether the magistrate's popularity has faded, Sukingneo doesn't know. But Lu Bachan passed the April government examination and became a boy student. If he passes the academy examination in June, he will be a scholar. Lu Shenke even came specially to report the good news to her. From this point of view, Lu Bo's Yu family still contributed. But Su Qingyu felt that the magistrate's anger should not go away. Because she didn't pay much business tax before and it was a small business. How much profit could she make from the vegetables and meat on her plate? Therefore, the monthly business tax is not much. But as soon as Master Ma's incident came out, her business tax increased several times, and she had to pay several taels of silver a month. Su Qingyu thought it was targeting her, but when she asked the surrounding shops, she found out that everyone's business tax had doubled. Lu Shenke's grocery store also paid a lot more. All the merchants in the town were complaining. Everyone makes less money. But what can you do? First, you have to pay. The common people don't dare to fight with the officials. What they say is what they say. You have to pay as much as you are asked to pay. Secondly, the shop cannot close down just because the business tax is too high. Even if the business tax is too much, it will only mean less profit. Is it possible to close the door and go home to drink the northwest wind? Some shops that like to be clever close their shops and hide during the business tax collection days, such as Lu Yuzhi's good friend Qianyuoru and her father. Shopkeeper Qian runs a cloth shop and has given birth to several daughters. Thinking about his son makes his eyes turn green. He is afraid that he will not be able to rely on him for old age in the future, so he is usually very picky. The doubling of business taxes immediately triggered a boom. It's no different than cutting out his flesh. Commercial taxes are all collected by the county's money master himself. The days are generally relatively fixed, so the money manager is clever and closes the business on those days. As soon as the people left, he flashed out. Seeing the complaints from the surrounding merchants, I was very happy and laughed at their stupidity. Unexpectedly, he was killed and turned around. A few days later, the county sent people to his shop to block people and fined him a lot of money. Shopkeeper Qian almost fainted from the pain. And some people lied in the shop and said they didn't belong to the owner, and people from the county directly blocked his home to collect it. This operation frightened all the merchants in the town. I didn't dare to go against the people in the yamen, but now I was punished by having to wear pants because I turned in late and protested. Who would dare to commit a crime against the wind? Su Qingyu felt a little uneasy. Could it be that the county magistrate has lost money from his private treasury and wants to make up for it from the merchants? Sure enough, just after collecting the business tax, someone from the county came to collect the ding tax from her. Su Qingyu was confused. Her family has given birth to a baby, but the baby has just given birth and is still too early to become a baby. So does he charge a baby tax? Doesn't this dynasty stipulate that you should only start paying the ding tax when you reach the age of 16? And has the ding tax increased so much? After paying the ding tax, she also had to pay an exemption tax. She said that there were no men in her family doing hard labor and they had to pay an exemption tax. Before this was over, she was charged another household tax because she had divided her household. Then she was charged a deed tax for the sale of a house. Didn't her father-in-law pay the deed tax in the county when he transferred the ownership? Receive again? And soon, another land tax was levied on the land under her name, more than in any previous year. In addition to her, Aunt Jo's family also paid back taxes. Her son was only 8 years old, not even 16 yet, so he also paid the male tax. Then Su Qingliu also paid the household tax, and Su's father also paid Xiao Qinjiang's ding tax. After paying the ding tax, there were young men everywhere in Fengting town looking for jobs. Su Qingyu was surrounded by boys all day long asking if she wanted a part-time job. Not to mention this, Su Dehu and Su's father also said that a tax card was set up at the gate of the city, and all goods entering and leaving the town must pay customs duties. Isn't this tariff a tax levied on foreign goods at the border? Will tariffs be collected from domestic merchants? Import duties? Does the above no? I heard the tax card officer said that if you want to pass through the city gate, you have to pay taxes. Originally, the commercial tax paid by merchants was an estimated amount. Now when the tax card is placed and entering and exiting the city gate, the police will collect the tax based on the amount of goods. Even the farmers who carry their burdens into the town to set up stalls will be taxed on those few vegetables and eggplants. As a result, for a while, no one dared to carry a load into the town. It turns out that the county looked down on farmers' small money, so Huabao and others went to ask for it from farmers. Now, people from the county come directly to collect it. As a result, Huabao and others lost their jobs. Not to mention, the county collects total money from merchants. It is said that for every 1 or 2 transactions, another 30 yuan will be charged. Not only the total payment is collected, but also the monthly payment. Monthly pile money was the imperial court's requirement for counties and governments to hand over a certain amount of silver every year in order to raise military expenses. In previous years, all counties and governments paid the tax from taxes, but this time, they also levied it specifically from merchants and farmers. Suddenly, everyone in the town was wailing. Many businesses have closed. After the tax card was installed at the city gate, farmers no longer came to the town to carry their burdens, and the number of people coming to Suqing's shop to buy vegetables increased sharply. Farmers did not pick vegetables to sell in the town. Although Sudahu and Su's father collected a lot of vegetables, once the city gate tax card was set up, they would be charged a so-called customs fee every time they brought vegetables in. As a result, although the number of customers in Suqing's store increased every month, her profit decreased. Suergu and another vegetable shop were struggling and could no longer operate. Both stores raised their vegetable prices in unison. If your county collects my wool, I will collect the guests' wool. As a result, a large number of customers flocked to her store. Suqingnao had no choice but to be forced by the other 2 companies to also adjust the price. After all, her costs have increased. Everyone in the town suddenly lived frugally. The usual lively scenes of restaurants and bars outside have not appeared for a long time. A few days later, Lu Juyi came to see her and specifically told her not to resist the tax. It is said that many merchants and farmers who resisted taxes were arrested and imprisoned in the county jail. What happened in the end? No, I still haven't endured it. In the end, the shop was gone, the land was sold, and a lot of money had to be spent to redeem the person. How could Suqingyu, a small citizen, dare to challenge people from the yamen? But that didn't stop her from complaining. Don't you know, the magistrate, that the magistrate sets up random names to collect taxes? Lu Juyi curled his lips and said, why don't you know? Someone has already complained to the higher authorities, but most of the tax money collected by the magistrate was paid to the government on the face of the public. Does the government still think it's too much money? It's just turning a blind eye. Just eyes. Suqingyu sighed, if the conquest continues like this, the lives of ordinary people will not be able to survive. No, but since ancient times, how many Qingtian lords have been in charge of the life and death of the people? Suqingyu thought so. Then I heard Lu Juyi say, by the way, I heard that you 2 have been separated. Suqinjao nodded. As soon as Master Ma's incident comes out, the family is afraid that the higher UPS will put pressure on Lu Bozu's future. He smiled again. It's okay to separate, just to be quiet. Lu Juyi took a deep look at her. I don't know what's going on with Bo Chen now. If he knew that he was still fighting bloody battles outside, but his wife and children were separated at home, he would definitely be sad. Seeing Suqinjao's relieved look, he sighed, if you have any problems in the future, just come to me. My father is quite useful in the county now. He may not be able to help with big things, but he can still protect you with small things. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bajia 11U. Chapter 107. After Lu Juyi came, Su Shayan also came within a few days. He received the news from his subordinates, and was afraid that something would go wrong with Su Qingyu, so he rushed over here. Nothing happened to you here, right? Su Qingyu shook her head and joked, it's not a problem. It's just that I earn less money. How about a lower price? However, it's easier to collect vegetables and fruits now. That's right, it's a lot more troublesome to get in and out. Su Shayan smiled and then calmed down. He tapped his fingers on the table, thought for a while, and suggested, dried vegetables and fruits. Is it possible to make dried vegetables and fruits in your village? Then the village also dug a large cellar underground. Ah, let's make it in Zhuangzi. Su Qingyu hasn't thought about that place yet. Yes. Our family can open up the joints, but I can't do anything about you. Now every town in Pingchuan County has set up tax cards, but Pingchuan County does not. He is not so bold as to dare to set up tax cards in the county. There are so many families, he is also afraid of causing a backlash. Your Zhuangzi is close to Pingchuan County, so I made it directly at Zhuangzi. I asked people to transport it, which saved a lot of tax on both sides. Seeing Su Qingyu deep in thought, he added, I haven't congratulated you yet on the birth of your son. Don't you want to earn more for your son? I heard that you were separated and your son was also levied a ding tax. Su Qingyu glanced at him and bared her teeth. You said, my son is not as long as my arms, so he is going to be taxed? I don't know what to say. If the county wants him to be a laborer, please feel free to do so. If you take it, why don't you ask for tax exemption? I am also a slave to the person who came up with these names. Su Shayan smiled and shook his head helplessly. Do you think our family paid less? In addition to taxes, we also paid a large sum of filial piety money, and the head of our family had to hold it up with a respectful smile. What did we say? Su Qingyu shook her head helplessly and sighed. He must have collected enough this time, right? The private treasury is probably going to overflow. Will the tax card be withdrawn? Su Shayan glanced sideways at her, as if she was childish. You are overthinking. You have tasted the sweetness, can you not eat the meat in front of you? 2. If a large box of gold ingots falls in front of Su Qingyu and she doesn't look at it, then she is simply not a human being. The meat is already in your mouth. If you don't eat it, you must not be an ordinary person. It's just that Fengting town is visibly deserted. The shops on the street were deserted and desolate. The shopkeepers and their colleagues stared at each other and went out to attract customers. But for food, clothing, housing, and transportation, your clothes can be patched, and you only need a roof to cover your body. You don't have to travel, but can you not eat? Su Qing's store was busier than other stores, and she was jealous of all the merchants. But, looking at the little profit left on the books, Su Qingyu also had a headache. The past 2 years have actually been pretty good. It's summer now, and the fruits and vegetables in the fields are ripening one after another. If you don't pick them, will they rot in the ground? But even if they are picked and sold, there is not much profit. Many farmers hate the tax differences caused by the tax cards set up at different levels. Su Qingyu persisted for a few more days, and saw that Uncle Zhao and Uncle Lu, who originally supplied him with vegetables, came to him on behalf of their respective villages, begging Su Qingyu to go to the countryside and collect the vegetables from the villagers, otherwise they would rot in the fields. This year not only was the local tax overpaid, but a bunch of other inexplicable taxes were also collected, causing households to complain. The half-grown children, both boys and girls, were sent out to find odd jobs. Otherwise, the little output from the fields would not only be insufficient to pay taxes, but it would also be difficult to feed the family. Su Qingyu made a decision and took Su's father and Sudahu to Zhuangzi, where Su Shayan transferred the ownership to her. Because Xiaobao had to nurse every hour, Su Qingyu took Xiaobao with her. Worried that no one would look after him, he took Xiao Qingxin with him. Now the little baby can't roll over yet, and he won't cry as long as he's fed. He's pretty easy to take care of at this time. Just feed him and put him to bed with someone watching. That Zhuangzi is on the outskirts of Pingchuan County, and Suqingyu has not been there yet. At that time, the family was not separated and she was living in the Lu family, so it was difficult for her to do anything. Before, Su's father was asked to guide the tenants and farm servants in farming, and Su Dehua was asked to carry vegetables there, but she only said that someone else had entrusted her to manage it. But now it's no longer easy to hide it from the two of them. On the carriage, when Su's father finished listening, his jaw almost dropped. What did he hear? The Zhuangzi he had taught before belonged to his daughter? In such a big Zhuangzi, all the prostitutes are prostitutes? When did she buy it? Is the son-in-law hiding so deeply? Su Dehua was also very surprised, but he was not as exaggerated as Su's father. He has helped Suqingyu this year and knows some things about her. He has made a lot of money himself, not to mention Qingyu. It's just that everyone thought that she was just doing the vegetable and meat business in the shop, making a profit of 2 or 3 taels a day. Xiao Qingxin was excited. Sister, are we going to your village? Is it my sister's village? There is also an old man's village near our village. It's so big. I heard it has more than 200 acres of fertile land and many yards. There are servants. Suqingyu held her son in one hand and rubbed her hair with a smile. After raising the child for more than a year, he had grown a lot. He was no longer skinny and his hair had become thicker and thicker. My sister hasn't been there either, so I don't know what it is like. We'll find out after we go and see it later. Yes, Yao Qingxin was very excited. Why isn't brother Xiaomu today? Can't he also come with me to see my sister's Das Wangzi? Father Su closed his chin and swallowed hard. In the past, during the slack season, he and several brothers had gone to the village near their village to do odd jobs, and they had also seen the owner of the village, surrounded by a bunch of people. That was the aura of a landlord. Didn't you expect that his daughter also has a big man? When he listened to his daughter's advice and went to the village to plant vegetables, he thought about what kind of person the owner was and how he had so much fertile land. Unexpectedly, the owner of the village is beside him. Qing Lao, your son-in-law got this Zhuangzi from his grandfather? Does your father-in-law know? The honest father was afraid that his son-in-law had concealed the property and that the property would be recovered and divided again. It wasn't him. I earned it? Did you earn it? Su's father looked surprised. We sell dried fruits and vegetables for takeout from cellar to cellar. Dad never asked where they were sold and to whom. Su's father didn't even think about it. Dad, why are you asking? Just know that the things you make can be sold. After speaking, he paused and looked at Suqingyu. Well, can you earn a fortune? Sister, are you making money like this? Xiao Qingxin also looked at her with her mouth wide open. Suqingyu smiled. It's not the things that make money, it's the technology that makes money. Sister sold this technology, and people used it to make a lot more dried fruits and vegetables than we did for takeout. That's the one that made money. And last time, didn't sister let Joe has your mother-in-law ever fried noodles? They can be kept for a long time, and that family is rare. Father Su remembered. Yes, Dehu and I went to a neighboring county last winter to collect vegetables. We brought some with us to eat on the road. We soaked them in hot water and added some dried vegetables we made. It was really fragrant, convenient, and hot. It's much better than eating dry biscuits on a cold day. Sudehu felt warm in his heart when he thought of the dry noodles, vegetables, pickles, etc. that Suqingyu asked him to take with him when he went out in the winter. He had never found running outside in the cold to be torture. Sister, is that valuable? It's worth selling it to people who need it? Then why don't we make it ourselves and sell it? We have no manpower and no connections. And as soon as we make it, someone will imitate it. Only when a big family makes it, others will not dare to compete with them. Su's father and Sudahu both understood. Sudahu looked at Sukingyu in a strange way. Then he looked at the baby in her arms and saw her looking at the little treasure in her arms tenderly. He felt a little unspeakable in his heart. Sour. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 108. Soon the group arrived at Zhuangzi. Read. Zhuangzi rushed over quickly, welcoming a group of people into the courtyard. This time when he learned that Zhuangzi belonged to his daughter, Su's father felt that his back had straightened up a lot, and he was no longer as cautious as before every time he came here. I was still in the mood to walk all the way and look at this village. Every time I came here before, I had never been to the main courtyard. When I came in this time, I looked carefully and felt that this courtyard was larger than the second courtyard his daughter bought in the town. There must be 3 or 4 in there. There are also many rooms, including a front yard and a backyard, a garden and a pavilion, a carriage and horse house, and a tool room. There is also a large warehouse built in the backyard to store grain, and a very large cellar was dug in the yard. Su's father was taken around by Zhuangzi and was amazed and praised all the way. It turns out that the landlord's house has even built a village better than other people's homes. This is probably just an occasional place to stay and relax, but it has been so well kept and even the furniture and furnishings in the house have been left behind. Sukingyu nodded along the way. Zhuangzi was very satisfied with this. After understanding some of the situation with Lu Zhuangzi, I had an idea. When I got this village, I also kept all the servants and tenants in the village. Except for 2 households of servants who returned to the Su family. Everyone else stayed. The tenants also re-signed their leases. The servants who stayed behind were also safe and sound. Those who were placed in the Zhuangzi were usually only able to take care of the fields. When they returned to the Su family, they were just sent to another Zhuangzi. I'm used to staying in this village, and life will be the same when I go to other places, so why bother moving around? Besides, I have been interacting with the people around here for so many years and are familiar with them. If I move to another place, I have to reintegrate and may be squeezed out. The remaining servants of the village did not leave. The original Zhuangzi family returned to the Su family. At first, Su Shayan gave her the title of village servant. After listening to Su Shayan's words, she chose a loyal and honest man to be the owner of the village and entrusted Zhuangzi to him. At this time, Sukingnao was very satisfied as Lu Zhuangzi reported the situation to her with the account book. At this time, she had settled Su's father and others, Xiaobao had gone to bed, and Xiaoqingxing was taken to visit the village by the owner's granddaughter. Su's father and Sudahu also went out for a walk. Sukingyu listened to the village head talking about the situation in the village, and also met the remaining servants one by one. After encouraging them, he let them leave. He left Lu Zhuangzi behind and told him what to do next. Because of their bond and cooperation with Su Shayan, Sukingyu believed that they knew the importance and would not leak secrets or do anything inappropriate. Lu Zhuangzi was very happy after hearing Sukingyu's instructions. Who wouldn't be happy if you get extra income from doing more work? Don't worry, owner of the village. I'll pick someone right away. I'll definitely pick someone who is quick on his feet, clean and not talkative. Don't worry about their loyal owner. The ones who stay are all honest and have no connections. Everyone is living their own lives. Besides, I'm watching over the village owner, so I won't delay the village owner's affairs. Sukingyu nodded. My surname is Su, I will call you Madam Su from now on. I may not come here very often. The 2 people just now, one is my natal father and the other is my natal cousin, they will be the ones to come forward in the future. From the Su family, Su Xiaodong's family will send someone close to him to contact you. If you have anything to do in the future, you can ask someone to report it back to Fengting Town. Yes. Don't worry, Mrs. Su. I will definitely take care of things. Su Qingyu nodded with satisfaction. After saying some more words, he was allowed to go down. She had only been sitting in the room for half an hour, and Lu Zhuangtu had already gathered 10 people. There are men, women, and children. Lu Zhuangtu was a little uneasy when he saw that Su Qingyu didn't speak. Seeing Su Qingyu looking at the 2.5-year-old girls in the crowd, she said with fear, Ms. Su, these 2 children are not just a bunch of people. They are really quick and serious in their work. I think it's best for this matter every family has to provide help, so that every family can have a subsidy. In these 2 children's homes, they're adults. The 2.5-year-old girls, looking at their 12 or 13-year-old appearance, thought that Su Qingyu did not want them. They were so frightened that they knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing, Madam, Madam, please do your best, we will not delay you. Those who have a job will not delay their job. Su Qingyu stroked her forehead, but she hadn't said anything yet. Get up first. Seeing that the 2 girls were getting trembling, they didn't dare to raise their heads, and sighed, I didn't say I don't need you. I just didn't expect it. And the wages I get for this job are different from others. I work according to different types of work. Pay by the piece. Piece calculation? Isn't it calculated on a daily basis? What is piece rate calculation? The 10 people called over by Zhuangtu looked at each other. When Zhuangtu went to each house just now to inform everyone, everyone was happy and excited. Who wouldn't be happy to get an extra income for their family? And you don't have to go anywhere else, it's just in Zhuangzi. You can still make money close to home, and everyone can earn it. But there are only 10 people in this batch. Maximum of 1 or 2 people per family. Yes, the work depends on the piece. For example, some people dry, some wash and cut, some make fires, and some chop firewood. The heavier the work, the more wages will be paid. So if they are all washed and cut, others will pay for 1 day. If you cut 100 jins, if you cut 60 jins a day, others will get more money than you, and the wages will be cleared every day. After saying this, everyone will understand. Zhuangtu admired Su Qingyu very much. Just now, he was still thinking about how he would allocate the labor after Mrs. Su handed over this work to him. They are all old partners who have been together for so many years. Who is allowed to do the heavy work and who is allowed to do the light work? Even if you change it, others will complain. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Su divided the wages according to the severity of the work and the amount of work done. This is really great. Now there should be no one to complain and no one to procrastinate. And wages are cleared every day. Money is given out at the end of each day's work, and it is clear at a glance who gets more and who gets less. It is obvious to all who is diligent and who is lazy. There is no need for him to supervise you. Those who make little money will be beaten with sticks at home. You are not the only one who can work at home. If you don't want to work, you can go back to the fields to pick up dung and replace it. It is estimated that no one dares to be lazy, even if he has little money, he will not be able to show his face. Lu Zhuangtu was filled with admiration. It has been decided that in the future, the management of the farm servants will be based on the amount of work done and the monthly salary will be paid according to the size of the contribution. The honest and hard-working people cannot be disadvantaged. The person who was selected looked excited. In this case, if he works a little more every day, he can take home more money. The 2 little girls are also competing secretly. They will not be worse than others. You will definitely not be held back, and you will definitely do more and better than others. Su Qingyu said some more, such as asking for quality as well as quantity. Don't just ask for more, and you won't pay attention to quality requirements. If something is not up to standard, money will be deducted. After some explanation, everyone is asked to come and try out the work for a day tomorrow. Let everyone go back. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 109. Su Qingyu stayed in Zhuangzi for 4 days and finally arranged everything. In the past few days, Su Dehua and Su's father collected a large amount of fruits and vegetables and transported them to the village. With enough people and abundant materials, a large number of finished products were quickly piled up in the cellar. On the 4th day, Su Shayan came in person and was very satisfied with Zhuangzili's output. He discussed some details with Su Qingyu, said a few words to Zhuangtu, and then left. People in Zhuangzi saw that the former young master's family had a close relationship with the current owner of the village, and the deeds were also in the hands of the current owner of the village. All those who were thoughtful were restrained, and no one dared to do anything irritating. Early on the 5th day, Su Qingyu handed over the matter to Lu Zhuangtu and returned to Fengting town with Xiao Qingxing and Xiaobao. Su Qingyu has been in charge of Fengting town these days, and the store is doing well. There was nothing for Su Qingyu to worry about. The other 2 stores raised their vegetable prices due to rising costs, and the freshness and service of the vegetables and meat could not keep up. Su Qingyu's store ushered in a peak of traffic. Of course, when the merchants were indifferent, there were many people who were jealous of her. But on the surface, her business is only 3 melons and 2 dates, vegetables, tomatoes, and fruits. It is a small business based on cultural calculations, and it is not worth calculating. The people depended on food and were jealous, but there was no one who plotted against her secretly. Nowadays, farmers and mountain people do not easily enter the town. If they want to buy some mountain products and game, they cannot do so. After crowding out the vegetable shop, are you planning to let everyone drink the northwest wind? On this day, Su Qingyu stayed in the shop very late, calculating the day's turnover. After dinner, she gave Dajiang and Su Dehua a few words, and then she and Su Qingyu, Yaya, and the twins carried Xiaobao to her little room. Go to the hospital. Sister, Dad has been back to the village so late these days. My brother will be on farm leave in a few days. Should we go back too? Su Qingyu smiled. What can you do when you go back? You can't do the work in the fields. Su Qingyu glanced at their brothers and sisters. Xiao Qingyang will be busy with farm work in a few days. You can go back and stay for a few days. Although you are not required to do the work in the fields, you can help the adults with some small favors. You will do the farm work in the fields. It's okay to bring water and food. The labor ladies in the field will pay for a few workers. There are many people looking for odd jobs, and the price is not expensive. Xiao Qingyang nodded, yes. We will go back with Dad then. Xiao Qingxing also nodded. After thinking for a while, he raised his head and looked at Su Qingyu. Then can we take Brother Kia back? He always wanted to visit our village. Su Qingyu laughed. It's true, the children in the village want to run to the city, but the children in the city want to go to the village to experience it. Su Qingyu also laughed. The child must have panicked in the town. He said to Xiao Qingxing, you can't go secretly. You have to ask Grandpa Xia and he agrees before you can take him there. Yeah. Qingxing nodded heavily, and Xiao Qingyang also smiled. Yai ran over to pull them, and the 3 children ran forward hand in hand, laughing all the way, causing Xiaobao in Su Qingyu's arms to look over. Su Qingyu looked down at him and poked his soft forehead with her finger. When will you be able to run and jump like your uncle, aunt, and cousin? Xiaobao stared at her with his big innocent eyes, and his long eyelashes fluttered. Su Qingyu came over, hugged him, and said with a smile, it's still early. Our baby is growing slowly, don't be in a hurry. When we got home, we freshened up and went back to their rooms to sleep. At night, Xiaobao was hungry and howled twice. Su Qing got up and fed him. After feeding him, he just put him to sleep. When he was about to lie down, he heard something in the courtyard, like the sound of something falling to the ground. Suking Nao is very keen on the sound of debate and listens attentively. A very thin sound came from the courtyard. The movement is very light. Suking Nao heard clearly that there was a thief in the yard. She hurriedly moved Xiaobao to the back of the bed, covered him with a quilt, and placed pillows around the outside. Got out of bed and put down the curtain. He felt the electric prod behind the door and held it in his hand. It sounded like there was only one person, and that person entered the west wing. Suking weighed the electric wand in her hand and quietly opened the door. After exiting the room, she quietly closed the door without making any noise. Tiptoeing to the west wing, she saw a dark figure in the room rummaging through his belongings in the darkness. She tightened her grip on the electric baton and planned to give him a hard blow from behind. As she tiptoed over, the people in the room seemed to feel something, and turned around and punched her. Suking hurriedly ducked and swung the electric baton, knocking him out immediately. After Suking tied him up, she took off his mask. Leopard. Hua Leopard was still confused when he was woken up by the splash. He clearly didn't see that there was nothing in the opponent's hand, but when he saw the opponent wave, he seemed to be hit by something. His whole body was numb, and he fainted immediately. It's obvious that the neighborhood is full of ordinary residents, but this house has hired guards. Hua Bao was still trembling slightly, and the numbness in his body seemed to have not dissipated. He looked up at the person who woke him up. It looks familiar. I haven't seen him for a few days. You don't go to town to collect protection money, but come to your door to collect it instead. Suking looked at him coldly. Hua Bao came to his senses completely. Isn't he familiar with the firewood girl from their village who was married to the town? He also led people to her house to ask for protection money. I heard that not long after she got married in the town, her husband was taken away. People in the village said that she had no husband and children and would live in dire straits under the hands of her stepmother-in-law. Unexpectedly, as soon as her man left, she started to be a local girl. She opened a shop and her business was booming. She opened several similar shops in the town. She thought she was going to be squeezed to death, but she didn't expect that they were still running well and business was booming. You don't have to look at your stepmother-in-law's eyes to live your life, you can make money by yourself and live happily. I heard some time ago that a son was born. She was rich and had a son by her side. After her husband died, she could still find a young and strong one. No one in the village now said that her life was good. How did you touch her home? This isn't West Street. Doesn't her Lu family live here? Sister, good sister, my brother touched the wrong door. If you spare my brother, just pretend that you can't see it. Ah, we are from the same village and grew up together. Sukinjao smiled, don't tell me about my friendship. You got involved without thinking about friendship. Besides, I have a house full of women and children. I don't dare to spare you. I'd better hand you over tomorrow, maybe there is a reward for it. I heard that the government soldiers are stationed in the town. No, sister, please don't hand your brother over to the soldiers. He was wrong. He was just confused for a moment. Please. Suking ignored him and touched him for a while. She was relieved to see that he didn't carry a murder weapon. But even if he was carrying a murder weapon, Suking wasn't afraid. Your business is very extensive. You collect protection fees during the day and do business without capital at night. For the sake of the village, I will let you sleep here for a night, and I will send you out tomorrow. No, no, sister, please, brother. Seeing that Suking ignored his plea for mercy and turned around to leave, he hurriedly shouted, Sister, sister, I have news about Master Ma. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 110. Suching paused and turned to look at him. Read. Sister, sister, I know, I really know. Seeing Suqing turn around, Huabao was overjoyed and struggled to say, I know you are good friends with Master Ma's family. I also know that your husband is Master Ma's apprentice. At that time, I went to your shop to ask for protection money, and later the people from Yanggui Martial Arts School went to warn us and told us not to harass you. Did Yanggui Martial Arts School warn you? Huabao nodded desperately, yes, yes, our boss also told us not to do anything to you. Later, we retreated from your shop on the whole street and dared not go there again. Suqing listened to him quietly, and then asked, you said, do you have news about Master Ma? Huabao nodded. Suqing looked at him in confusion, you don't know that the government and the county are looking for him, do you? If you have information about him, why don't you sell it to the government soldiers stationed in the town? The reward should be a lot, isn't it better than robbing someone else's house? Huabao said hurriedly, I overheard it from our boss. I don't know whether our boss sold his information to the higher UPS, but if I tell the higher UPS without my boss, I will be beaten to death by our boss. So you told me the news about Master Ma now, do you want to sell me out? Huabao shook his head desperately, no, no, I don't mean that. I know you are good friends with their family, and the government also asked you some time ago. If I sell you, doesn't it mean selling me too? My mother is still in the village. Suqing looked at him steadily. The gangster still missed his mother at home. It seems that he still has a bottom line. Decided to believe him, Master Ma. Huabao glanced at her and lowered his voice, I heard that he went to Yingshui Mountain, robbed several hilltops, became the boss of that hilltop, and gathered a large team. Our boss was tempted and prepared to go there to rob the hilltops. Suqing's face was full of disbelief, rob the hilltops. Huabao nodded, well, I heard that the hilltops are steep and easy to defend but difficult to attack. Suqing didn't recover for a long time, Yingshui Mountain, where is it? It's in the northwest, not far from the border. I heard that the court sent people to clear it out every year, but it couldn't be taken. Suqing sat down on the ground in a daze. Huabao talked to her a lot again, and her head was buzzing. After a long time, he heard him say, I am also leaving Fenting town with my boss. I originally wanted some money as travel expenses, but I didn't expect to find my sister's house. Are you leaving Fenting town? Going to the stone quarry in the neighboring county. Our boss is just like a little brother in the stone quarry in the neighboring county. It's boring. Now the border is unstable, everyone is going there, maybe they can do something big. Suqing was stunned, you don't want your mother anymore. Huabao was silent, my mother, anyway, she can live better without me. He lowered his head as he spoke. Suqing glanced at him. She lived in a remote corner and didn't pay much attention to the affairs of the court. Fenting town was far away from Kyoto and was usually calm. Suqing felt that her life was stable. She didn't expect that it seemed like heroes were about to emerge in the world. Suqing asked Huabao some more questions. Huabao didn't know much, but he told her everything he knew. He said a lot of useful and useless information. Suqing listened to him talking about the dynamics of their group and the people around him. Suqing still felt that the calm lake was blown by the wind and rippled. Suqing looked at him steadily and turned away. Sister, sister, I have said so much, please let me go, I will never dare to do it again. Huabao saw her disappear and cursed in his heart. Just after cursing, he saw Suqing coming back, and swallowed his unfinished words again, sister, good sister, please let me go, I will never dare to do it again. Suqing put a purse in front of him and said lightly, there are 10 taels of silver in it, you go. After that, she untied him. Huabao was a little stunned, sister, sister, you. Thank you for telling me the news about Master Ma. Our family is all women and children. What you said today, I will forget it after hearing it, just as you I have never been here before. The leopard understood immediately, moved his hands and feet, picked up the purse on the ground and put it in his arms, and said solemnly, "Don't worry, sister, I will just pretend that I have never been here. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone." When he walked out, he thought for a while and said, "Sister, I don't know if there will be chaos outside. You should pay more attention to it. Don't go to the north, there are many people there." After saying that, he rushed to the wall in 3 or 2 steps. Just as he was about to jump out, he saw Suqing'an standing there looking at him. He wanted to say something, but stopped. He touched the purse in his arms and just said, "Thank you, sister." After saying that, he took 3 or 2 steps, climbed the wall and flipped out. A gust of night wind blew, as if nothing had happened at night. Suqing'an returned to her room silently, bolted the door, and sat on the bed in a daze to digest the leopard's words. She never dared to underestimate the ruffians and beggars. These people roamed everywhere. Although everyone wanted to beat them, they were often the most informed. On the contrary, people who live in a small place are content with the status quo, trapped in a place, and do not know the changes of time outside. Now Huabao and others are leaving. Although the tax debt has squeezed them out of their livelihood, they must have greater interests driving them to such a faraway place. Suqingmei thought blankly for a while, then dragged down the suitcase hidden on the top of the cabinet, opened it to see the gold inside, and was relieved to see that they were well hidden. She put them back in place, thinking that she would exchange the silver in her hand for some gold another day. The next day, Suqingliu saw that she had dark circles under her eyes, and thought that she didn't sleep well because Xiaobao disturbed her last night, so she took Xiaobao over and took care of him personally. Suqingmei didn't explain. She just quietly paid attention to the people and things on the street. In a blink of an eye, Xiaobao passed the 100th day, and Lu Bozu also got the title of scholar. Lu Shenkewu was very happy, and set off a long string of firecrackers at the door of Lu's house, set up dozens of tables, and invited guests to drink. Suqingmei also went there with Xiaobao, and gave a gift money. Mrs. Wu happily circled around her several times. Lvu was also dressed in new clothes, with a head full of gold ornaments. She was smiling and shuttled between the female guests. She looked like a lady from a wealthy family. Many women pulled her to ask whether she was married or not. Mrs. Wu was so happy that she couldn't stop smiling. Old Man Lv's family was also taken over. They were called Old Man by countless people. Old Man Lv drank several more cups happily. Their family finally had a scholar. This was something they had never dared to think about before. People from the village and the township came to congratulate him every day. Old Man Lv felt that he was floating. In a blink of an eye, he saw 2 little great-grandsons. Seeing that their eyebrows and eyes were gradually growing up, and that there was someone to succeed the Lv family, Old Man Lv felt that his body was 2 taels lighter. After the scholar banquet, Lv Bozu went to Pingchuan County and studied hard in the clan school of his future Yu family. If he wanted to make further progress, Lv Shenke and Mrs. Wu were ready to pick a date for her. Many people came to propose marriage to Lu Yizhu, and Lu Shenke and Wu were very busy. Even Suqingmei thought that the world was peaceful these days. But she didn't expect that the county would issue a document just a few days later. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 111. Documents from the county were quickly issued, and all towns and villages received documents indicating the death of frontline soldiers. Read. At the gate of Fengting town, 2 large notices were posted, listing the names of those killed in battles from every township and village. They were so densely packed that it made people feel nervous just looking at them. The corresponding list has been copied to the village chief, but there are still layers of people searching for the names of their sons and daughters around the notice board every day. Every day, as long as you are close to the gate of the town, you can hear bursts of mournful wailing, making the listeners cry. Su Qingyu also went to see it several times and confirmed word by word that Lu Bachen's name was not there. Her stiff limbs softened and she could no longer walk. His eyes were full of poor people lying on the ground, crying so hard that they couldn't breathe, and his ears were full of those crying and howling sounds. She confirmed with Lu Juyi that there was indeed no Lu Bachen's name, so she didn't dare to go there again. There was a continuous sound of crying in my ears. I didn't dare to sleep or go home. There were also suppressed cries at home. Su Qingliu's husband and Yaya's father Kui Mangzhon were also on the death list. She also didn't dare to go to the store. The son that Granny Zhou had been waiting for several years, Aunt Zhou's husband, Heng Xiu, and her brother's father were also on the death list. The name of cousin Zhou Daijian's brother Zhou Dazhuang is also on the list. Su Qingnao didn't dare to go home or go to the store. Even when she walked on the road, she was crying. Every day in the town, people performed rituals and threw paper money. Zhou Daijiang returned to his home in the neighboring county. Granny Zhou endured the pain and was still busy in the shop. Su's father accompanied Su Qingliu and Yaya back to their village. She wanted to go back to build Kui Mang's grave. And Su's mother came to town to inquire about Su Qingsong. Su Qingnao took her through the notice list, but Su Qingsong's name was not found. Lu Juyi also confirmed for her that Su Qingsong's name was not there. Mother Su still couldn't let go and went to the town gate every day, fearing that one day a third notice would be posted. Every day before going to bed, he would shake his hands and hold Su Qingyu. Qingyu, do you think they haven't finished copying it yet? Without waiting for Su Qingnao to answer, she said to herself, Qingnao, you said your brother is alive, is he still alive? Su Qingyu nodded every time, well, mother, I don't have my brother's name, but he is still alive. Alive, still alive. When Su Qingnao put her to bed, covered her with a quilt, and thought she was asleep, she opened her eyes again. Qingnao, the notice won't be posted anymore, right? Is your brother still alive? Su Qingnao heard her ask over and over again, and every time she patiently replied that he was still alive. My throat was choked after I finished speaking. Su Qingnao couldn't fall asleep for a long time when she lay down at night. Think about the list on the notice board. There were almost none on the list of those who were expropriated together with Lu Bachen last year. I don't know if it's because they haven't been brought to the front line yet, or because they haven't been counted yet. The list of those killed in battle must first be reported to the court, and the Ministry of Household Affairs must verify and issue the list, and then issue pension funds, and then report it down level by level. Su Qingyu looked at her son, who was sleeping next to him and was gradually growing up. The child's eyebrows and eyes looked very much like his father's, with sharp eyebrows and starry eyes, handsome. Only a little bigger, it was longer than her arms, and she could even roll over. Su Qingnao poked her sleeping son and saw that he wrinkled his beautiful eyebrows and waved his hand unconsciously with an impatient expression. Su Qingnao smiled. He stroked his forehead and said, "Son, your father should be alive." The night was so dark that not even the scattered stars could be seen, and it was shrouded in black clouds. In a trench not far from the border, Lu Bachen had been lying down for 3 hours, from sundown to dusk, and then into the starry night. As if feeling something, he raised his body. "Tou, what's wrong? Is there any movement?" Guo lay down next to him, watched him stand up slightly, moved over quickly, and asked in a low voice. Lu Bachen lay back again, staring ahead. He shook his head, nothing happened. "And you? Stand up. We thought we were going to get up and do some errands. This mosquito is almost full. My ears are just hot." Ears hot. Guo tried his best to look forward through the layers of darkness. Their heads indeed had special abilities, and they could sense changes ahead based on whether their ears were warm or not. Just as he was making random guesses, he heard Lu Bachan whisper, "My wife may be talking about me." Guo thought he heard some useful news, but he didn't expect to hear such a sentence. He didn't remember his wife's words today, but he actually thought of his wife now. Come on, bully him for not having a wife? When the battle was over, he immediately asked for leave and went out of the camp to find one. Snort. A group of people lay still for half an hour, until they heard Lu Bachan say, "Action." Everyone took off their disguises, carried the guy, and ran towards the action quickly. After a fight, Lu Bachan led a dozen of his men to capture the enemy's sentry post, lit the smoke, opened the gate of the enemy camp, and welcomed his own troops in. The fighting lasted until the end of the next morning. The captain, who had been promoted to the rank of general, patted Lu Bachan, who was covered in blood, and praised, "Okay, your boy has made meritorious service again this time." Lu Bachan dragged his arm that had been numbed by the hacking, and clasped his fists in vain. "The general is overpraised. It is all the credit of all the soldiers. You kid, don't be so modest. I'll give you a big credit on your merits." "Thank you, General." Lu Bachan took off his thick armor as he walked towards the camp. Go-Wa came over and said, "Boss, what do you think the superiors will reward you this time? Give you a promotion or gold?" "You know gold. Don't you like gold?" "As long as it's valuable, I like it. I'll save it for my wife in the future." "You are just thinking about marrying your wife. As if you don't care about your wife." Go-Wa curled his lips. Lu Bachan rolled his eyes at him and said nothing. He reluctantly took his armor and followed him. As he walked, he took off his clothes. "Boss, there is a river here. I asked about it and it's clear. Let's take a bath later." "I'm stinky." After saying that, he sniffed his body and looked disgusted. The ground tilted to one side. Hearing that Lu Bachan agreed, he happily followed him, took off his clothes, and took a look at Lu Bachan. "Hey, head, it's so hot, and you're still wearing this blouse clothes?" Lu Bachan took a look at himself. He took off his armor and still had a middle coat on him. Outside the middle coat was the soft armor given by his master. Outside the soft armor, he was wearing a robe made by his wife. Lu Bachan touched it again and again with nostalgia. "Well, I'm afraid of the cold." Go Sheng held the armor and clothes of the two of them in his hands and was stunned. "Are you afraid of the cold? In the middle of winter, we were taken outside to train in the snow. You ran back and forth shirtless for a few times. Now you say you are afraid of the cold? I believe you, you big-headed ghost." "Madam, she has a tender heart." Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 112. Sukingliu stayed in the countryside until the 7th day of the sacrifice for Kui Mangzhong, and then returned to Fengting town. When she came back, she looked extremely haggard. The flesh she had gained for a year had been lost again. Her eye sockets were sunken, and it was obvious that she had not slept well these days. Sukingmei looked at her worriedly, and she just smiled and said that she was fine. She put down her luggage and went to work in the store. She also spoke less. Yaya was young and ignorant. When she saw her two uncles and aunts, she jumped over happily. When she saw her little cousin again, she rushed to hug him. She grabbed her cousin's rattle and shook it, and coaxed Xiaobao to play. Zhou Dajiang also returned to the store, and the eldest aunt's family also built a grave for Zhou Dazhuang. Aunt Zhou's family did the same. After waiting for so many years, I knew that there was little hope, but I still had a hope. I didn't have a solution before, and I always looked forward to it. This time I had a solution, but the result was like this. There was also the small restaurant that Lu Bachan had taken her to eat before. The food tasted very good. Suchingen would often go to the restaurant when she invited guests. The owner of the restaurant has been her loyal customer since she opened the restaurant. But he came to see Suchingen 2 days ago and said that he would not need to send food to his family anymore. He and his wife would take their grandchildren back to the countryside. The old couple waited for their son in the town for 7 or 8 years. Their daughter-in-law ran away. They opened a small restaurant and raised their grandchildren. The old couple refused to move and waited for their son to come back from the battlefield in the town. Unexpectedly, they waited for the news that their son was killed in the battle. There are many such families in the town. During this period, there are people in the town who are performing rituals every day, and paper money can be seen scattered on the street every day. During this period, in addition to Suchingen's shop, the coffin shop and the incense shop in the town are the most prosperous. That night, Suchingen coaxed Xiaobao to sleep and knocked on Suqingliu's door. "Sister, are you asleep?" After a while, Suqingliu opened the door for her. "Sister, let me talk to you." Suqingliu let Suqingmei into the room. The two sisters lay on the bed, with Yaya sleeping on the inside. "Sister, are you okay?" Suqingliu shook her head in the dark night. Suqingmei leaned over and patted her, and said softly in her ear, "Sister, you still have us. You have your parents, your brothers and sisters, and Yaya. If Xiaobao's father also has an accident in the future, we will live together. Raise Yaya and Xiaobao together, and let Xiaobao take care of us in the future." "Well." Suqingliu responded with a buzzing sound, turned around and lay in Suqingmei's arms, covering her mouth and crying. The crying was suppressed, which made people feel sad and uncomfortable. Suqingmei hugged her tightly and shed tears. The next day, Suqingliu looked better. In the store, Grandma Zhou would also find an opportunity to talk to her. The old man had experienced a lot and was indifferent to life and death. Seeing that she was in a bad mood, a young woman, her parents-in-law and husband were gone, and she was raising a little baby, a little girl. If she had the opportunity to marry again in the future, it would be fine if she married a good family. If she didn't want to marry or married a bad family, it would be really hard for her to live as a widow and a lonely girl. Granny Zhou often talked to her and enlightened her. Father Su also accompanied her silently, and Mother Su came every now and then. Suqingliu gradually came to her senses and was not so depressed. Every 7-day sacrifice of Kui Mangzhong, she would bring Yaya back to the village to burn paper for him. It was not until after the 7/7 sacrifice that Suqingliu was relieved. Suqingen felt relieved. That day, Lu Juyi came to see Suqingen. Since the last time the list of casualties was posted, Lu Juyi would come to the store every now and then, whenever he had time, and every time he came, he would hold Xiaobao and coax him to play. Sometimes he would tell Suqingen about things outside. The tax card at the town gate was removed a few days ago. "Do you think that gentleman has stopped?" Suqingen said. Lu Juyi was holding Xiaobao and didn't have time to reply. Seeing Xiaobao's big dark eyes staring at him, he covered his eyes with his hands in a naughty way, but was pulled down by Xiaobao with both hands in anger, and slapped him with his little hands, and glared at him fiercely. Lu Juyi was not annoyed at all, and laughed loudly. "This kid has a bad temper." When little Lu Viang saw Lu Juyi laughing at him, he got annoyed, turned around and stretched out his hand to Suqingen, not intending to let Lu Juyi hold him. Before Suqingen stretched out his hand, Lu Juyi lifted him up high and threw him up twice. Not only was the kid not afraid, he also laughed, and when he saw Lu Juyi stop throwing him, he angrily slapped Lu Juyi with his little hands. Lu Juyi threw him up twice again, and the boy was happy. He let Lu Juyi hold him obediently and played with his clothes in his arms. Lu Juyi smiled and held him tightly with one hand while talking to Suqingen. "That gentleman has become bolder and now does things quite recklessly. But he has someone above him, and the prefect has to give him some face. Now it's just that there are too many soldiers killed in the county this time, and the taxes were collected a little bit harshly some time ago, so they are just pretending. Otherwise, if there is a fuss, everyone will be embarrassed. Suqingyan smiled. Then she said, I heard that the pension silver for the soldiers who died in the battle this time is 10 taels per person. The government office didn't touch it, and it was all distributed to the families. Lu Jui pinched Lu Xiaobao's little fleshy hand, and when he was impatient, he smiled and let go, feeling good. He smiled at Su Qinjiao and said, he doesn't dare to stretch out his hand for the pension money. If the families of the fallen in action start a riot, and it chills the hearts of the soldiers at the front and starts a mutiny, no one can bear this responsibility. It will also affect the next recruitment. When the time comes, the county will not have enough soldiers to recruit soldiers, and he will not be able to bear this responsibility. Su Qingyu was stunned. Is there going to be conscription again? Lu Jui paused and said, with this great victory at the border, we should not recruit troops so quickly. But the situation in the DPRK and China is unstable, and many people died this time. If the army wants to increase its troops, my father and the others estimate that, we'll still recruit troops again. Su Qingyu let out a long sigh. Lu Jui also fell silent. He touched Lu Xiaobao's little head and saw Xiaobao looking at him and scratching his nose with a smile. Xiaobao patted him with his little hand, and he smiled and stretched out his hand to let Xiaobao hit him. Seeing that he was not annoyed, Xiaobao grinned and patted him several times happily. He also looked at Su Qingyu happily, showing off proudly. Su Qingyu glanced helplessly at the impish-sized Lu Xiaobao, nodded his little head, and he happily touched it with his little fleshy hands. Lu Jui looked at him with a smile. He said to Su Qinjiao, Xiaobao is very smart. He will be your support in the future. You, mother and son, just live your life well. No matter how you recruit soldiers, it has nothing to do with you. Just train Xiaobao well. Over there with the Lu family, with Lu Bozu's fame, your father-in-law and the others will also be exempted from military service. Su Qingyu nodded. She is not worried about the Lu family if there is another conscription. As Lu Bozu has gained fame, old Lu has combined the household records of his 3 sons. If there is another conscription, old Lu and his family in the countryside will be exempted from military service. It's just that the Su family in Kyoto village has a lot of boys, so I don't know who will go this time.